We serve at your pleasure, King Bran the Broken, ruler of the Six Kingdoms and protector of the realm. Long may he reign.
What is Game of Thrones about? Seems like a pretty simple question, and anyone who's familiar with the show could answer it in their own way. Game of Thrones is about the Iron Throne, about the rivalry between great houses, about dragons, magic, the White Walkers, the struggle between good and evil, about duty, honor, intrigue, love, well, and a lot of other things. But if you ask someone to formulate the main idea of the entire series, what George Martin wanted to convey to us, and back it up with facts from the books or the series, even the most competent and knowledgeable gurus of A Song of Ice and Fire often struggle to give an answer. However, I am sure that George Martin, who dedicated decades of his life to this book and wrote literally thousands of pages, must have had a unified concept. You can write a short story on the fly, but when you're working on a book of that scale, you better have a clear idea of what you're trying to say. In this video, I will tell you what I personally consider to be the main idea of George Martin's work. I'll go through the key Game of Thrones characters to show how this central idea is reflected in each of their storylines. And once you know all this, a whole range of questions about the show's ending, so hotly debated at the time, and about who was meant to sit on the Iron Throne will simply disappear. The Game of Thrones universe has hundreds of characters and dozens of plotlines, but behind each of them there's a certain idea. Littlefinger is the embodiment of intrigue and the hunger for power. He believes chaos isn't a threat, but a ladder you can climb to the top.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
Ned Stark is a symbol of honor and duty, yet it's his unyielding straightforwardness that leads him to a tragic end.
You're as stubborn as your father. I can imagine no higher praise.
Didn't mean it as praise. Honor got your father killed.
Tywin Lannister represents pragmatism. For him, nothing matters more than the strength of his house, and personal sacrifices are simply an acceptable price.
You know what legacy means? It's what you pass down to your children and your children's children.
Arya Stark is the embodiment of revenge and retribution. Samwell Tarly is knowledge. The list can go on. Each of them is not just a piece on the board, but a bearer of a certain concept. But is there something common that unites all these narrative branches? And I think there is. And to understand what it is, it's worth listening to the one who utters perhaps one of the key phrases of Game of Thrones. It's about a person who didn't have military power and wealth behind him, but who, despite this, was one of the most influential people in Westeros, thanks to manipulating information, knowledge, and rumors. It's about Varys.
Knowledge is my trade, my lady.
In the third episode of the second season, Varys poses a riddle to Tyrion.
3 great men sit in a room. A king, a priest, and a rich man. Between them stands a common sellsword. Each great man bids the sellsword kill the other 2. Who lives, who dies?
There are different interpretations of the answer to Varys' riddle, but not everyone knows that in the 8th season, Varys himself gives the answer.
Men decide where power resides, whether or not they know it.
And in my opinion, it is the exploration of the theme of power that is the main theme of Game of Thrones.
Power resides where men believe it resides. Power is a curious thing, my lord.
And to not be unfounded, let's go through the key characters and see how the theme of power is revealed through their storylines. Daenerys started as a protector of the downtrodden, a liberator of slaves, a defender of the oppressed, a person standing on the side of the common people.
You will release every slave in Yunkai. Every man, woman, and child shall be given as much food, clothing, and property as they can carry as payment.
She, more than anyone else, sought to become a just ruler. But power is a special test. Over time, it turned out that Daenerys' ideas about power were idealistic and too naive. The more she tasted power, the harsher and more uncompromising she became.
We will storm the city, my queen. We will kill your enemies. All of them.
Initially, her strength was based on the support of the people. They believed in her mission. Varys remained the one who did everything for her success until the very end. He even freed Tyrion from prison just so he could become her advisor.
A monarch who can intimidate the High Lords and inspire the people. A ruler loved by millions. Or you can ride with me to Meereen, meet Daenerys Targaryen, and decide if the world is worth fighting for.
However, power changes a person. Psychologists confirm this too. Power affects thinking, dulls empathy, and makes a leader place themselves above common norms. Surrounded by approval, a person begins to believe in their infallibility and right to everything, just because they are at the helm. This is what happened with Daenerys.
Can't hide behind small mercies.
With each new city, with each victory, she became more and more severe. And in the end, King's Landing was burned to the ground. This is not a madness outbreak or a loss of sanity. For her, it was a conscious step. It was necessary. She believed she was doing the right thing. And this is the paradox of power. Often, the one who fights for freedom becomes a tyrant themselves. This is the first facet of power. Power attracts the worst and corrupts the best. Ned Stark is the embodiment of honor and duty. He lives by conscience and teaches this to his children.
The man who passes the sentence should swing the sword.
For him, justice is not an empty word. No wonder he says that the one who passes the sentence should swing the sword. Because responsibility should be personal, not delegated. When King Robert Baratheon dies, Ned tries to act according to the law. He believes that the truth will protect itself. But this is his main mistake. While he plays by the rules honestly, others are already setting traps. He is not a politician, but a warrior, used to the enemy coming out to him on the battlefield. He is completely unadapted to the world of court intrigues, where the main weapon is not a sword, but lies and hypocrisy. And before defeating the enemy, you must first recognize them. He is offered to seize power by force.
Protector of the realm will know, he who holds the king holds the kingdom. Every moment you delay gives Cersei another moment to prepare.
But he prefers to act by conscience.
I will not dishonor Robert's last hours by shedding blood in his halls.
And ends up first in prison, and then on the chopping block. Ned Stark's story is another statement by George Martin about the nature of power. Power is a game where the most worthy do not win. Principles alone are not enough. And in politics, there is sometimes simply no place for honor and duty. Robert Baratheon is another important chapter in George Martin's reflections on power. He came to the throne through force, overthrowing the Mad King. But once in power, he just sat on the throne as if he received a participation trophy.
I'm trying to get you to run my kingdom while I eat, drink, and haul my way to an early grave.
For him, power is not a duty, but a reward. And this is his mistake. Robert is an example that winning a war is not enough. The real test begins after victory. Power is not a trophy to hang on the wall. Once you have conquered power by force, you cannot simply relax. It cannot be maintained without participation, without management. Because while you celebrate, those ready to take your place are already lining up. He grew indifferent to state affairs, indulging more and more in wine and pleasures, and began to lose control of the situation. His reign is a clear demonstration that a throne won by the sword quickly becomes an empty symbol if it is not backed by the will and ability to hold power.
My memory, King Robert Baratheon, murdered by a pig.
Stannis Baratheon embodies the idea of power as law. For him, the crown is not a symbol of might, but a consequence of an inalienable right. He must become king because, in his conviction, it must be so.
The Iron Throne is mine, by right.
His power is dry, cold, but devoid of life. He demands submission, but does not inspire people. Jon Snow is another facet of power. Like his father, he strives to rule honestly and fairly. He leads people not by legal right, but by personal example and the strength of his charisma.
We'll stand behind Jon Snow. The King in the North!
He is not just a commander, but a brave warrior, fighting shoulder to shoulder with ordinary soldiers. Like Ned Stark, he is ready to take personal responsibility for every decision made. But where does this lead? His own comrades betray and brutally kill him.
Watch. For the watch.
And in the end, he has to demonstrate cruelty by executing the rebels to confirm his strength and right to power. It turns out that charisma and honor alone aren't enough to hold on to power. You sometimes have to inspire fear and show strength. And no one understands this better than Cersei Lannister. There is a memorable scene where she gives a lesson to Pater Baelish, who dares to blackmail her with compromising material.
Sometimes I've heard brothers and sisters develop certain affections. When those affections become common knowledge, it is an awkward situation.
He claims that knowledge is the source of power.
Knowledge is power.
But Cersei vividly demonstrates to him that he is mistaken.
Seize him. Cut his throat.
At her command, the guards seize Baelish. She orders them to kill him, and in the very same moment calls it off.
Stop. I've changed my mind. Let him go. Step back 3 paces. Turn around. Close your eyes. Power is power.
She shows this rule in the scene with Ned Stark. He holds a signed decree from King Robert, a document that makes him regent.
King Robert's seal. Unbroken.
But Cersei tears it up, showing that it's just a piece of paper.
Is this meant to be your shield, Lord Stark? A piece of paper.
The truth doesn't matter if you have strength in your hands. That's why Sir Gregor Clegane is always by Cersei's side. Not just a bodyguard, but a living embodiment of her principles. He is a demonstration of the very rule she professes. Power is strength. Cersei does not try to be fair or loved, and in a world where the rules are written by the victors, her approach proves frighteningly effective. Since we mentioned the scene with Cersei and Littlefinger, it's worth taking a closer look at Petyr Baelish. Littlefinger is the embodiment of power as intrigue. He has no army, no right of blood. He does not inspire people and rather evokes disdain.
Sometimes those with the most power have the least grace.
His weapon is manipulating information and intrigue. He builds his career by manipulating others' ambitions, pitting allies against each other, and then picking up the pieces and getting closer to the throne. He formulates his method of achieving power with a rule. Chaos is a ladder. While others see danger and instability, he sees opportunity. Sowing discord, he rises higher and higher.
If war were arithmetic, the mathematicians would rule the world.
Taking advantage of confusion and others' weaknesses.
Chaos is a ladder.
He is a master of using the moment. Where war flares up, he always finds a way to benefit. But even the most sophisticated mind is not omnipotent. In the end, he loses because he got involved in a game too dangerous to predict everything, especially when forces beyond your control and outside the usual intrigues come into play. Such as Bran Stark, who became the Three-Eyed Raven. For Littlefinger, used to calculating everything, such players are a blind spot, and this becomes fatal for him. Another crucial player in this big chess game is Varys.
Power is a curious thing, my lord.
A symbol of power built not on strength, not on charisma, and not on law. His strength lies in the information he receives through an extensive network of spies. Thanks to his intelligence, composure, and strategic thinking, he builds long-term plans calculated decades ahead. Varys sees his mission as serving the state, as he understands it.
Who do you truly serve?
The realm, my lord.
He is the embodiment of shadow bureaucratic power, a gray cardinal who knows how to pull strings and influence events from behind the scenes. Varys does not seek to take the Iron Throne personally.
I must be one of the few men in this city who doesn't want to be king.
His goal is to guide the one who, in his opinion, deserves to rule. This is how he begins to promote Daenerys as his piece in the Great Game. However, even the most calculating mind is not immune to mistakes. Realizing that Daenerys did not meet his expectations, he tries to pivot in favor of another candidate.
And there's the problem of Jon Snow.
But the game he'd been playing for so long ends up turning against him. The ruler he led for so long executes him for treason.
Lord Varys, I, Daenerys of House Targaryen,
sentence you to die.
His story is about how even those who pull the strings can eventually find themselves in the hands of those they manipulated. We have reviewed the key characters. Of course, there are many more, and in each of them, the main leitmotif is manifested. George Martin's reflection on power.
Men decide where power resides, whether or not they know it.
Each of these characters is the embodiment of various aspects of power. Not everyone here possesses power and influence. There are also those who are forced to submit. Take, for example, Sandor Clegane, the Hound. He does not seek the throne, but is forced to live in a world where power decides everything. Or Bronn of the Blackwater, a man without titles, who perfectly understands how this world works and acts cynically but effectively, trying to extract maximum benefit. Every house, every faction, every character is somehow involved in the struggle for power. Some for ideals, others for survival or gain. If you keep this main thought about power as the key theme that permeates the entire narrative, many twists that seemed unexpected or even controversial to viewers begin to acquire internal logic. It becomes clear why Daenerys, having started her journey as a liberator, ends up as a destroyer. She did not suddenly go mad, she simply reached the logical end of her struggle. Power became for her the absolute truth, for which everything is permissible.
We can't hide behind small mercies.
It is clear why Jon Snow, seemingly the ideal ruler, never sits on the Iron Throne. His exile is a symbol of the rejection of the idea that power can be based on honor and justice, because he is not a player. In a new world where power is no longer just a matter of legitimacy or justice, but a matter of survival and balance, there is no place for Jon. The finale, in the form of the burning of the Iron Throne, is the culmination of all George Martin's reflections on power. The dragon destroying the throne seems to feel it. It is not just a piece of metal, but a source of pain, suffering, and destruction. None of those who sought it found happiness in it. Through this act, Martin seems to say that the pursuit of power is destructive by nature. Even if you go to it with good intentions, in the process, you risk becoming the one you wanted to overthrow. Power changes people, subjugates them, demands sacrifices. It does not tolerate weakness and does not encourage nobility. It always has its price. Therefore, it is no coincidence that Bran, a person who has lost personal ambitions, sits on the throne. He is an observer, a being that has gone beyond the human game. Martin seems to propose a utopian idea. Power should be devoid of passion, ambition, and personal gain. It should serve, not rule. In our world, this is of course still unattainable. But as an idea, it contrasts with everything we saw in Game of Thrones. After chaos, betrayals, and blood, the throne is not received by any of the players. It is received by the one who did not play at all. And this is Martin's final statement, in which he draws a line under the entire saga. True power is not the right to conquest and not a reward. It is a burden that must be borne by the one who does not want power at all. Game of Thrones is a reflection on power and George Martin's authorial view. But a reasonable question arises. Why should we believe him at all? Why does fantasy suddenly have the right to reflect on the nature of power and its mechanisms? Initially, I wanted to reveal this topic within one video, but I quickly realized that covering everything at once is not an easy task. That's why I decided to make a separate follow-up where I'll explain in more detail why George Martin's perspective truly deserves attention. But whether this video appears depends on your interest. If this topic resonates with you, support the video and the channel in the usual ways. You can also check out other Game of Thrones videos on this channel. This greatly helps with promotion. And if the follow-up is already out by the time you're watching, look for the link below this video and on the screen at the end of this one.